You're not going to believe what my sister did. I had just bought my first brand new car, months of saving, planning, finally mine. And in less than 24 hours, it wasn't. She took it without asking, wrecked it, and when I confronted her, she smirked. It's only a car. My hands were shaking, my chest was burning, but I stayed silent. Because what happened later that night, at the family dinner table, was so much better than anything I could have said. I always thought family was supposed to have your back, or at least respect your boundaries. With my sister, that was never really the case. Growing up, she had this way of taking whatever she wanted, my things, my time, my patience, and somehow making me feel guilty for even noticing. Our parents brushed it off as sibling rivalry, but to me it felt more like she had a permanent pass to cross every line and laugh about it afterward. When I finally saved enough to buy my own car, my first real, brand new car, it wasn't just about transportation. It was about independence, about proving to myself that the years of taking odd jobs, working late shifts, saying no to nights out, all of it had actually meant something. That car was supposed to be a symbol that I could stand on my own, without borrowing, without hand-me-downs. The day I drove it home, I swear I felt taller behind the wheel. My dad gave me a half-smile like he was proud, but didn't want to say it out loud. My mom kept asking me the monthly payment, like she was running numbers in her head. And my sister, she rolled her eyes, muttered something about midlife crisis energy, and then immediately asked if she could take it for a spin. I laughed it off and said, not a chance. I literally just signed the papers. Looking back, that was my first mistake. Thinking no was enough to set a boundary with her. The thing about my sister is she has this way of testing people, waiting for them to break. She thrives on seeing how far she can push before someone finally pushes back. And most of the time, nobody does. Because pushing back means conflict, and conflict in our family never ends clean. It's either silence that lasts weeks or explosive dinners where everyone pretends nothing happened the next day. So when she smirked at me in the driveway, tossing her hair like she was the one who had earned it, I felt this pit in my stomach. I knew she wouldn't just drop it. I just didn't know how far she'd go. For the next day, I caught her glancing at the car keys like they were calling her name. I put them on my dresser. I carried them in my pocket. I even left them in my work bag once just to keep them out of reach. Every time she noticed, I felt that tension grow, the kind of tension that makes you laugh nervously in the moment but leaves you wired and restless at night. What I didn't realize then was that she wasn't just planning to borrow it. She was planning to prove, in her twisted way, that my independence was still a joke to her. That no matter how hard I worked, she could take it all and reduce it to nothing with a shrug. I had no idea the real test of boundaries was coming faster than I thought. And when it finally hit, it didn't just cost me a car. It cost me the illusion that my sister would ever treat me as an equal. The morning it happened felt almost too ordinary. I was still riding the high of owning that car, still catching myself glancing out the window just to see it parked there like some kind of trophy. I had washed it the night before, polished the hood until it gleamed under the streetlight. It wasn't just transportation to me. It was proof. I left the keys on my nightstand. Careless, maybe, but I figured I was home, safe. I had errands planned later that day, so I wasn't in a rush. I made coffee, scrolled my phone, tried to ignore the sound of my sister's music blasting down the hall. She was in one of her I own the place moods, slamming doors, humming along loudly to songs I couldn't stand. When the music suddenly cut off, I barely registered it. But the silence was too sharp. Seconds later, I heard the jingle of keys. My chest tightened instantly. I bolted down the hallway just in time to see her hand on the doorknob, my keys swinging from her fingers. "What are you doing?" I asked, trying to keep my voice calm. She turned slowly, gave me that smug half-smile she always used when she knew she was in the wrong but didn't care. "Relax," she said. "It's just a car. I'm taking it around the block." My pulse spiked. "No, I told you. Not yet. It's not insured for you. It's not." She rolled her eyes, already stepping out the door. "God, you're dramatic. One little drive won't kill anyone." I felt my throat lock. By the time I reached the front step, she was sliding into the driver's seat, adjusting the mirrors like she'd owned it all along. I shouted, "Don't you dare," but the engine roared to life, drowning me out. Tires screeched against the pavement, and in a blur of motion, my car, was gone. I stood frozen in the driveway, heart hammering, fists clenched. Every instinct screamed to call someone. my parents, the police, anyone. But another voice in my head whispered, "She'll be back in 10 minutes, just furious at you for making a scene." Those 10 minutes stretched into 30, then 45. By the time an hour passed, my stomach was in knots. I tried calling her phone, no answer. Texted her, nothing. I paced the living room, every sound outside making me flinch. Then came the knock on the door. Heavy, deliberate. When I opened it, 2 police officers stood on the porch. Behind them, through the open street, I saw the flashing lights of a tow truck. And there, mangled and barely recognizable, was my car, the hood crumpled, one headlight hanging loose, windshield spiderwebbed like shattered ice. I swear my body went cold. My sister stepped out from behind the officers, arms crossed, face twisted in irritation, not guilt. She looked at me like I was the problem. Her first words? "It's only a car. Don't be so dramatic." My vision blurred with anger, shame, disbelief, all crashing over me at once. I wanted to scream, to shake her, to demand how she could be so careless. But I couldn't get a single word out. Because even as I stood there, trembling, I realized this wasn't just about the car anymore. Something much bigger, and far uglier, was about to unfold. The tow truck left before I could even process what I was looking at. My car, my pride, now strapped down like roadkill under a tarp. The officers gave me a quick summary, clipped and impersonal. Single vehicle collision. No injuries. Driver at fault. They said it like they were reciting from a script. My sister hovered in the background, chewing her gum, eyes darting anywhere but at me. I kept waiting for her to look shaken, for her to mutter an apology, even something half-sincere. Instead, she shrugged at one of the officers and said, "Guess I won't be driving for a while." Like it was some minor inconvenience, like borrowing sugar from a neighbor and spilling it on the way home. When they finally handed me the incident report, my stomach lurched. I scanned the details. Vehicle owner, me. Driver, her. Estimated damages, 35,000 euros. I felt my knees wobble, as if the numbers had physical weight. I asked the officer, my voice thin, "So what happens now?" He gave me a look like he'd answered this question 100 times. "Well, since you're the owner and she's a licensed driver, the liability falls under her. Insurance won't cover reckless use without permission. That means she's on the hook for the damages." I blinked, trying to make the words sink in. She's on the hook. Not me. Not my bank account. Hers. Behind me, my sister scoffed. "Oh, come on. It's not like I don't know how to drive. The road was slick, that's all." The officer raised an eyebrow. "You were over the limit, ma'am. Witnesses said you were speeding." The silence in the room grew sharp. I caught her smirk falter for a fraction of a second before she crossed her arms again, doubling down. "Whatever. It's still just a car." I wanted to explode. To remind her it wasn't just a car, it was years of my life. But my throat felt raw, and instead I just stared at the paperwork. The official seal, the signatures, the breakdown of damages, it was all there in black and white. For once, her arrogance had a price tag. Later, when the officers left, I sat at the kitchen table with the report in front of me. My parents had come home by then, and the air was thick with tension. My mom kept asking, "Isn't there something you can do to help your sister?" My dad stayed quiet, staring at his coffee cup like it held answers. My sister, of course, leaned back in her chair like it was just another family squabble she could ride out. "He's being dramatic," she said. "He'll forgive me. He always does." But something shifted inside me. For once, I didn't feel the urge to shield her. I didn't feel guilty. I felt steady, almost calm, because I could see it in the fine print. The bill, the liability, the responsibility, all in her name. And for the first time, I wasn't the one left holding the bag. Still, that night, lying in bed, I couldn't shake a different kind of unease. If she could wreck my car and laugh about it, what else was she willing to destroy? The next day, I drove with my dad to the impound lot to collect the personal belongings left in the wreck. The ride there was quiet, almost suffocating. He fiddled with the radio, changed the station twice, then turned it off completely. I could feel his guilt radiating, the same kind he always carried when it came to my sister. She was the baby, the free spirit, the one they thought needed protecting. Me? I was the one who could handle it. When the attendant at the lot rolled up the gate, the sight hit me harder than I expected. My car, crumpled like an empty soda can. The front bumper hung off at an angle, the hood folded into itself. The windshield, what was left of it, glittered with cracks under the weak daylight. I stood there, frozen, my throat tight, while the attendant handed me a clipboard. "Sign here," he said flatly, like I wasn't staring at the corpse of something I'd worked years to earn. As I signed, my hands trembled. The pen slipped against the paper, leaving messy scratches. My dad put a hand on my shoulder, the kind of gesture that was supposed to comfort but felt hollow. I pulled away. Inside the car, I gathered the things I had left behind. A phone charger, a pair of sunglasses, the manual still wrapped in plastic. It felt absurd, collecting scraps from a grave. Every small object was a reminder. This wasn't supposed to happen. Not like this. Back at the insurance office, reality solidified. The agent, a tired woman with glasses perched on her nose, clicked through documents on her computer and finally printed out a thick packet. "I'm afraid," she began. "This is pretty straightforward. The driver was your sister. The liability is entirely hers. The claim is being processed under her name, and she'll be responsible for damages. 35,000 euros, pending assessment." I must have looked pale, because she added gently, "You're not financially liable. Your record is clean. But I assume this will create some tension at home." Tension. That word barely scratched the surface. I carried the packet home like it was radioactive. My sister was sprawled on the couch, scrolling her phone, feet propped up on the coffee table. She didn't even glance up when I walked in. "Did you get your junk back?" she muttered. I dropped the envelope onto the table. Papers spilled out, covered in numbers and official stamps. "This is yours," I said. She frowned, finally looking at me. "What do you mean, mine?" I leaned closer, my voice steady but sharp. "You're the driver. You're the one at fault. 35,000 euros. That's the bill. Your name's all over it." For a second, I saw it. Her smirk faltered, her eyes widened. But just as quickly, she snapped back, waving her hand like it was nothing. "You're bluffing. Mom and Dad will fix it. They always do." My mom appeared in the doorway, her expression tense. She had clearly been listening. "He's not bluffing," she said quietly. "The police report came. It's official." The silence that followed was brutal. My sister's face drained of color, then flushed red. She stood, her voice rising. "You can't let them do this to me. I was just driving around." He could have said yes. He could have given me the keys. I snapped. My hands slammed against the table, papers scattering like snow. I said no. "I told you no 100 times. You took it anyway. You laughed in my face. And now," I jabbed my finger at the numbers on the page, my voice shaking. "Now it's finally on you. Not me. You." Her bravado cracked. She looked at my parents, desperate. "You're really gonna let him hang me out to dry like this?" My dad rubbed his temples. My mom bit her lip. Neither of them rushed to her side this time. For the first time in my life, I saw my sister actually cornered. No witty comeback, no lazy shrug. Just the weight of a 35,000 euro debt pressing down on her, and no one ready to shield her from it. But instead of satisfaction, I felt something else twist inside me. Nausea, disbelief, the raw ache of betrayal. My hands were still trembling when I grabbed the packet and shoved it back at her. "Read it yourself," I said coldly. "Every page, every number, every word. It's all yours." Her lips parted, but no sound came out. She sat back down, papers trembling in her grip. For once, she had no control. And standing there, watching her finally realize the truth, I thought, this is only the beginning. Because if she's capable of wrecking my life this easily, she'll try again. Unless I stop her. The house felt different after that blow-up at the table. For once, my parents didn't rush to patch over the cracks. My dad stayed in his workshop, sanding wood like he could grind away the tension. My mom moved slower than usual, her face set in that tight-lipped expression she wore when she was pretending everything was fine. My sister, on the other hand, slipped into her usual defense, pretending nothing had happened. She strutted around the house, blasting music, slamming cupboards, humming to herself like she wasn't sitting on a 35,000 euro bill. If anything, she acted louder, as if the noise could drown out the reality pressing in on her. I tried to ignore it, tried to convince myself that the documents were enough. The numbers didn't lie. But a couple of nights later, I overheard something that made my blood run cold. It was late. I had gotten up for a glass of water when I heard muffled voices in the kitchen. I stopped at the doorway, listening. My mom's whisper, "We can't cover this for her. It's too much." And then my sister's sharper voice, strained but still manipulative. You don't have to pay it all. Just help me get a loan in his name. He owes me. He always owes me. My stomach lurched. A loan in my name? I pushed the door open. The look on their faces said everything. My mom looked guilty. My sister looked furious. Really? I asked, my voice low. You wrecked my car. You laugh in my face. And now you're planning to stick me with the debt. My sister shot up from her chair. Don't twist it. You know you make more than me. It wouldn't even hurt you. You're being selfish. Selfish? I could feel the heat rising in my chest. I worked years for that car. I told you not to touch it. You destroyed it. And now you want me to bail you out. She crossed her arms, sneering. Oh, please. You've always thought you're better than me. Well, guess what? Mom and Dad always help me. And they will this time too. You'll see. The arrogance in her tone made my hands shake. But when I looked at my mom, I saw hesitation. For the first time, she wasn't jumping to defend her. She looked torn, her eyes flicking between us. That gave me a sliver of hope and a deeper fear. If my sister could push hard enough, maybe they would cave. Maybe she'd drag them into this, and I'd end up tangled in her mess anyway. The next day, my suspicion was confirmed. I checked the insurance portal online just to make sure the claim was still locked under her details. And there it was, plain as day. Her name, her signature, her liability. But right beneath it, a note caught my eye. Additional claimant inquiry pending. My breath caught. Someone had tried to add another name to the case. My name. I stared at the screen, pulse hammering. She wasn't just trying to manipulate conversations at the kitchen table. She had actually contacted the insurance, trying to slide me into the wreckage of her choices. That's when I realized. This wasn't just arrogance. It was calculation. She was willing to burn me financially if it meant saving herself. And the real question hit me harder than the wreck itself. What else had she already set in motion behind my back? I barely slept that night. I just lay there, staring at the ceiling. The glow of my phone screen still burned into my mind. Additional claimant inquiry pending. My name. She had tried to drag me into her mess like it was nothing. I kept turning it over in my head. Part of me wanted to storm into her room, slam the papers down, and scream until she finally broke. Another part wanted to go straight to the insurance office, show them the truth, make sure my name was nowhere near her file. And then there was the darker thought. To let her drown completely, to watch her fall apart under the weight of her own arrogance. But that thought made me sick. Because no matter how much I hated what she'd done, she was still my sister. The little girl I grew up with, the one who used to steal my toys, who cried over scraped knees. Somewhere deep down, I kept looking for that version of her, wondering if she was still in there at all. The truth hurt more than the wreck itself. Maybe she wasn't. Maybe she had outgrown any shred of conscience years ago, and I'd just been too blind to admit it. I paced my room, my hands trembling, replaying every possible move. If I did nothing, she'd keep pushing, keep twisting. If I fought back, the fallout could tear the whole family apart. Either way, there would be no going back. I thought about my parents too. My mom's torn expression, my dad's silence. They were stuck in the middle, and part of me hated them for always letting her slide. If I made this fight public, it wouldn't just expose her. It would expose them too, their favoritism, their weakness, their complicity. By dawn, I was exhausted. My reflection in the mirror looked hollow, eyes ringed in red. But one thought cut through the haze, sharp and steady. If I don't put an end to this, she'll do it again. And next time, it might not just cost me a car. By the next afternoon, my decision was made. The paperwork, the portal note, the endless smirk on her face, it was all fuel. I couldn't just wait for her to twist things further. If she was willing to gamble with my name, then I had to make the rules clear, once and for all. I grabbed the thick packet of documents and drove straight to the insurance office. Every mile I took on my old beat-up backup car, I kept thinking about the wreck and about her words, "It's only a car." That phrase looped in my head like poison. At the front desk, the agent from before recognized me. She adjusted her glasses, frowned, and said softly, "We did get a call trying to add another claimant. But don't worry, nothing was changed. We flagged it." Relief washed over me, but only for a moment. Because it wasn't just about blocking her move. It was about making sure she never even thought she could try again. "I want it noted in writing," I said. "Everything. That I never authorized her to drive. That I'm not liable. That this is entirely her responsibility." The agent nodded and typed furiously, clicking through tabs. Finally, she slid a form across the desk. "Sign here." This protects you legally. Whatever she says, the record will back you up. My signature scrawled across the page felt like armor. For the first time since the crash, I wasn't just reacting. I was taking control. When I got home, my sister was in the kitchen, laughing on the phone with one of her friends. She covered the speaker with her palm just long enough to mutter, "What?" Here to nag again, before going back to her call. My blood boiled. I set the packet down on the counter with a sharp smack. The sound made her flinch. "Read it," I said. She rolled her eyes. "Ugh, not this again." "This isn't a game," I snapped. "The insurance knows what you tried. They know you tried to drag me into your mess. And guess what? I signed everything. You're locked in. 35,000. In. Your. Name." For the first time, I saw her composure slip. The color drained from her face. She muttered something into the phone, then hung up. "You're lying," she whispered, but her voice cracked. I leaned closer, my tone calm, almost too calm. "Check for yourself. Call them again. See what happens." Her jaw clenched, her eyes darting, calculating. She hated that I had beaten her at her own game. But then, just when I thought she might finally crumble, she smirked. That same smug smirk that had haunted me since the driveway. "Doesn't matter. Mom and Dad will fix it. They always do." I laughed, a dry, bitter laugh that surprised even me. Not this time. The words hung in the air like a verdict. And that's when my dad stepped into the doorway, his face pale, his hands gripping a letter. His voice was low, steady, but shaking at the edges. "She already tried," he said. "At the bank. She tried to put your name down as a co-signer. They call me to confirm." My stomach dropped. My sister froze. The fight wasn't just about the car anymore. It was about whether she was willing to gamble away my entire future to save herself. For a few days, the house went strangely quiet. My sister stopped blasting music, stopped stomping around like she owned every room. She kept her phone glued to her hand, whispering more than laughing, pacing the backyard instead of the living room. It almost looked like defeat. My mom seemed relieved. She started cooking again, humming faintly like she used to. My dad stopped sanding the same piece of wood into dust, and even cracked a joke at dinner. For the first time since the wreck, I caught myself exhaling, thinking maybe the storm had passed. I told myself, she's finally realizing it. 35 grand isn't a prank you can charm your way out of. Maybe this is the lesson she needed all along. One night, I even went to bed early, lighter than I'd felt in weeks. No pacing, no endless scrolling through the insurance portal, no checking for updates every hour. Just silence. Peace. But peace never lasts long in our house. The next morning, while pouring coffee, I noticed an envelope on the counter with my name scribbled across it. My chest tightened as I unfolded the letter. It wasn't handwritten. It was official. A bank letterhead, crisp and cold. Inside, a notice, application reviewed. Pending cosigner approval. My heart dropped. My eyes darted to the bottom of the page where my name sat in black ink, forged. I felt the mug slip from my hand, coffee splattering across the counter. My mom turned from the stove, startled. "What's wrong?" she asked. I held up the letter, my voice shaking. "She's still trying. Even after everything. She forged my name." And in that moment, any illusion of resolution shattered. I don't know what hit me harder, the bold black letters on the bank's letterhead or the shaky realization that my sister had crossed a line that couldn't be brushed off as just family drama. This wasn't about wrecked property anymore. This was fraud. I stood in the kitchen, clutching the letter like it might combust in my hands. My mom hovered by the stove, looking at me, then at the paper, then away again. She whispered, "Maybe it's a mistake." "It's not a mistake," I snapped, louder than I intended. "This is her handwriting. Look at it." I shoved the envelope at her. She took it reluctantly, and I saw her face pale as she traced the forged signature at the bottom. That's when my sister breezed in, phone in hand, hair damp from the shower. She saw the paper in my grip, froze for just a second, then plastered on that same smug grin. "You're welcome," she said casually. "I'm helping you build credit." My jaw dropped. "Helping me build? Are you serious? You forged my name on a bank loan. Do you have any idea how illegal this is?" She waved her hand like I was exaggerating. "Relax. Nobody's going to care. Families do this all the time. You'll get approved. I'll pay it off eventually, and everyone wins." My dad's footsteps thundered in from the hallway. He grabbed the letter out of my mom's hands and read it, his expression hardening with every line. For once, his voice carried steel instead of resignation. Enough. This isn't just stupidity. This is a crime. My sister's smirk faltered. Dad, no, he cut her off sharply. Do you even realize what you've done? This isn't some borrowed sweater you forgot to return. You've dragged your brother into financial fraud. The room went still. My mom wrung her hands, torn between protecting her daughter and recognizing the gravity of it all. My sister shifted from foot to foot, her usual arrogance cracking under the weight of silence. I took a deep breath, my voice shaking but firm. I'm going to the bank today. I'm clearing this up before they think I had any part in it. And if they ask, I'll give them every document, the crash report, the insurance file, the signatures. Everything. Her eyes widened. You wouldn't. Watch me. For the first time, I saw fear in her. Not annoyance, not smug defiance, fear. Her lip trembled, and she tried to cover it with a laugh, but it came out hollow. Think about it, she stammered. If you do this, they'll have a record on me. Do you really want your own sister to have a criminal file? What will people say? What will the family think? The manipulation was so transparent, it almost made me laugh. But instead, I shook my head slowly. What will people think? They'll think I finally stopped letting you ruin my life. My dad placed the letter on the table and looked directly at me. I'll drive you to the bank. My sister's eyes darted wildly, searching for an ally. She turned to my mom. You can't let him do this. You always said we're family first. Family fixes things. My mom's eyes brimmed with tears, but she didn't answer. For once, she didn't step in to save her. My sister slammed her fist against the table, her voice breaking. You'll regret this. You think you're winning, but you're not. You're pathetic without me. And when everyone finds out how you treated your own sister, you'll be the one humiliated. Her words bounced off me like dull arrows. For the first time, they didn't pierce. I felt steady, anchored by something stronger than fear. Later, at the bank, the officer confirmed what I already knew. My name had been added without authorization. My signature didn't match. They voided the application immediately and filed a fraud alert. When I asked what that meant, the officer looked me in the eye and said, "It means this goes on record. If she tries this again, it won't just be denied. It'll be investigated." I nodded, my hands trembling as I signed the final forms. Behind me, my dad stood silent, but I could feel his pride, or maybe his shame for not stepping in sooner. Walking out of the bank, the sun hit my face, but I couldn't feel its warmth. Because even though I'd closed one door, another had just opened, one I wasn't sure I was ready to face. Because now the whole family knew, and my sister's desperation was about to get uglier than ever. The bank visit should have felt like victory. I had proof on my side, my dad finally standing beside me. The forged loan application ripped apart before it could sink me. But when we pulled back into the driveway, dread pooled in my stomach. Because I knew she wouldn't just give up. Sure enough, she was waiting. Standing on the porch, arms crossed, phone in hand, her expression a mixture of fury and desperation. The moment we stepped out of the car, she started yelling. Loud enough for the neighbors to hear. Really? You went behind my back. You humiliated me at the bank, she screamed. Do you even care what people are saying about me now? Everyone thinks I'm a criminal because of you. I wanted to shout back that she was a criminal, that she had forged my name and nearly ruined my credit. But my throat tightened. My dad's face hardened, but he didn't say a word. He just went inside, leaving me to stand there in the open, her words cutting into me like knives. That night, the phone call started. Aunts, cousins, even a family friend, all checking in, but really repeating her version of events. She'd been busy, painting herself as the victim, spinning a story about how I was abandoning her in her time of need. According to her, I was the heartless brother letting his own sister drown in debt over a minor accident. I felt the walls closing in. Every call, every whispered, "How could you do this?" chipped away at the resolve I had built. It was like I was fighting not just her, but an entire chorus of voices demanding I cave. At dinner the next day, my mom finally broke. "She's your sister," she pleaded, her voice trembling. "Do you really want her life ruined forever? 35,000 is. Yes, it's a lot, but maybe we can all chip in. If you just forgive her." "Forgive her?" I interrupted, my voice cracking. "She stole from me. She crashed my car. She tried to frame me for debt. And you're asking me to forgive her?" The silence that followed was suffocating. My mom lowered her eyes. My sister leaned back in her chair with that familiar smirk, as if she'd already won. Because she knew guilt had always been their weapon. And for a second, I felt it working. That night I sat alone in my room, my chest tight, hands pressed to my face. Maybe they were right. Maybe I should just let it go, take the hit, save the family. I hated myself for even thinking it, but the weight of isolation was crushing. I thought about the car, the debt, the forged signature, the endless cycle of her destruction. And I realized, this wasn't just about a vehicle or money. This was about every boundary she'd ever crossed, every time she'd been excused, every moment I'd been told to be the bigger person. If I gave in now, it would never end. She would own me forever. My hands dropped from my face. My heart pounded steady, louder, firmer. I knew what I had to do. And when the moment came, it wouldn't just be about the bill. It would be about finally ending the cycle, no matter how ugly it got. Dinner that night felt like a staged play. My mom cooked too much, as if a mountain of food could bury the tension. My dad sat rigid at the head of the table, arms crossed, jaw tight. I could feel the weight of everything unsaid pressing down on us, heavier than the plates of pasta steaming between us. My sister arrived late, of course, strolling in with her phone in hand, laughter still hanging in her voice from whatever conversation she'd been having. She dropped into her seat, looked around at us, and said cheerfully, "So, are we done pretending this is a crisis yet? Because I'm starving." I almost laughed, not from humor, but from disbelief. After everything, she still thought she could shrug it off. We ate in silence for a while, forks scraping plates, glasses clinking, no real words exchanged. Finally, my dad cleared his throat. "Your brother went to the bank. He saw the forged application." Her fork froze midair, then clattered onto the plate. For a second, the mask slipped. But then she leaned back, arms crossed, eyes rolling. "So what? Families help each other. I was just trying to fix things." I slammed my hand on the table, the sound making the glasses rattle. "Fix things? You wrecked my car, you tried to pin the debt on me, and then you forged my name on a loan. That's not fixing. That's destroying." She narrowed her eyes. "You're so dramatic. It's still just money. You make enough, you could cover this and never notice. But no, you'd rather ruin your own sister's life." I leaned forward, voice low and steady. "No, you ruined your own life. And I'm done covering for you." That's when I pulled out the folder I'd been carrying all day. Insurance reports, bank letters, fraud alerts, everything. I laid them out one by one on the table like cards in a final hand. "Here," I said. "Every lie, every scam, every signature. All of it in your name. You wanted to play games with my future? Congratulations. Now you get to live with yours." Her face drained of color. She glanced at my mom, at my dad, searching for rescue. But for once, neither moved. My dad's expression was carved from stone. My mom's eyes brimmed with tears, but she stayed silent. "You wouldn't," my sister whispered. "You wouldn't actually let them investigate me." I met her eyes. "Try me." Her mouth opened and closed like she was drowning. And then, in one last desperate act, she tried to turn the table. Literally. She shoved the folder away, papers scattering, and stood up, shouting, "He's lying. He's making this bigger than it is. You all know he's jealous of me. He always has been." But it was too late. My dad stood, slamming his hand on the table louder than mine had ever been. "Enough." His voice thundered. "I covered for you for years. We both did. But this? Forging his name? Endangering his future? This isn't family drama. This is criminal." The silence after his words was deafening. My sister looked at him like he had betrayed her, like the world had tilted under her feet. I gathered the scattered papers, slid them back into the folder, and stood as well. My voice was calm, final. "The bank has everything on record. The insurance too. You can't twist this anymore. 35,000 euros. Your name. Your debt. Your problem." Her eyes glistened, not with remorse, but with fury. "You'll regret this," she spat. "You think you've won, but you'll regret turning your own family against you." I shook my head slowly. "No. What I regret is letting you get this far." I left the table then, the folder under my arm, my hands still trembling but lighter than they had been in weeks. Behind me, I heard the scrape of my dad's chair, the quiet sob of my mom, and my sister's voice cracking into desperate curses. For the first time, I didn't look back, because the fight was over, and she had finally lost. White heavy check marks na Tingatova. Kulminacja I Akańczathil.